Alright, welcome to step 3 of phase 4, and today I'm going to be showing you how to converse like a master. Now, you've already learned how to hyper-personalize messages and a general framework for how to converse like a pro given the script that I provided you in the last video. But now it's time to take it up a notch, because now you're going to be using psychology and copywriting at its true core to actually convert these leads and actually take it to the next level when you're nurturing prospects so that you get the highest reply rate and you get appointments, and those appointments turn into so many dream clients and closes that you don't know what to do with your business, okay? So, how does this work? What does this all look like in terms of conversing like a master? Now, the first thing that you might have noticed in the previous general framework script that I covered in how to converse like a pro is you would have noticed that I was just kind of asking one-off questions. So I was showing you questions like, what are you currently doing for your fitness and nutrition? What are you currently doing for your business? What are you currently struggling with, right? But in terms of actually taking it to the next step, there's something that I call multi-thread questioning. Now, as you can see, what I've done here is I've simply posed one question. So as we said, what are you currently doing for your health and fitness? But when it comes to multi-thread questioning, instead of just asking this one question, what we're going to do is we're going to ask multiple questions in one. So let's say you find an investment banker who's based in New York and he's been doing this for 5 years, right? And he works for, let's say, Goldman Sachs, right? Maybe that's not true, maybe it's false, but let's just say that's the hypothetical situation, right? So what I'm going to ask him is, as a part of that hyper-personalized message, I'm not going to say, oh, what are you currently doing for health and fitness? I'm going to say, how long have you been going to the gym for? Has it been easy to balance both fitness, nutrition, and your work schedule? Now, I've just written down a multi-thread question, and forget the format, I'm not good at writing, and this is just how it looks on the whiteboard, but the whole concept behind it is I've asked 2 questions in one. So now that means that when they respond to my DM in the LinkedIn inbox, they're going to be more engaged in terms of our conversation, and they're going to give me a more meaningful answer. Now, the problem with a question like, what are you currently doing for your health and fitness, is that they're just going to give you a one-off answer. They're going to say, oh, I go to the gym 2 times a week, I'm on XYZ diet, I do the treadmill, I go on the bike, and so on, right? Whereas with a multi-thread form of questioning, where you say, how long have you been going to the gym for? Has it been easy to balance both fitness, nutrition, and your work schedule? That's going to give a much more meaningful answer, and they're going to be 10 times more engaged throughout your conversation, because now they have to answer 2 questions with one response. And that calls for a larger response, because they're going to give you a lengthier piece of text to work off of, and that is more likely to reveal more pain points. Now, the next thing that you want to implement across all of your LinkedIn messaging is psychological spacing. Now, whether it's a hyper-personalized message that you're sending off manually or automated through the software, whatever it is, I'm going to show you what psychological spacing is. Now, with multi-thread questions, this doesn't really apply. This more so applies to just the general frame and structure of an entire message. So, let's say you're sending off a hyper-personalized message. If you remember the way that we structured the message in the scripting in the How to Converse Like a Pro video, you'll remember that we wrote out line 1, line 2, line 3, and line 4. Line 4 was the question. Line 3 was like the personalized statement where we say like, oh, seems like you've worked on some pretty cool project. Then line 2 is, saw that you do investment banking, or I like the concept of McKinsey, or I like the concept of business name, whatever it is. And line 1 is literally just, hey name, right? Now, the reason why there is a space in between every single line is so that it's easier to read. Now, this is actually the premise of psychological spacing, because imagine you have 2 different types of messages that you receive on LinkedIn as a fitness coach and someone's trying to pitch you, right? Which one are you more likely to respond to? A message that's just a clump of text, so many words and so many sentences inside one message that it's so hard to read and just go through the entire thing? Or a message that's simple, doesn't overcomplicate it, doesn't go into too much detail, but has very simple spacing in between every single line, and it allows you to focus on every single line separately, and it's easier to consume. I think the winner here is pretty clear. What's going to happen, and tell me if I'm wrong, but anytime that you get a message that's like a pitch or just from someone else that's a clump of text, you usually read. the first and the last word. This is the problem with a clump of text, and this is why psychological spacing is so important, because it's so much harder to perceive a message just as a clump of text because you focus on the first and the last word. Whereas with a psychological spaced message, you can focus on every single line and the content in every single line separately at hand. And I apologize for the design of this writing, but the point that I'm trying to make here is that it's so much easier to perceive, process, and read so that you can process the meaning of every single line on its own and then put it all together. Whereas just reading the first word and the last word of a clump of text, you're not going to perceive the actual content of a message because they make the point in the middle. So what you want to make sure that you do every single time is try and be as concise as possible in all of your messaging so that it's simplified and it's super easy to read and understand. And at the same time, it's spaced out in between every single line. There has to be space. So what you want to make sure that you implement in all of your LinkedIn messaging is keep it simplified, make sure that it's easy to read and it's understandable, right? Do not send clumps of texts. It's only okay to connect two multi-thread questions. Anything more than two questions put in one sentence together, you do not want to do that, okay? Because no one's actually going to be able to perceive the three questions put together in one sentence as well as maximum two. Because they can actually see, okay, question 1, question 2, I'm going to try and answer both at the same time. Whereas with 3 questions, they have 3 different things that they need to answer now, and it's much harder to structure a sentence. So the same thing applies to multi-thread questioning. You want to make sure that that applies across everything in terms of LinkedIn, especially those initial connection requests that contain the hyper-personalized message, whether it's through the software and it's automated or whether it's manual. You want to make sure that there's psychological spacing. Now, the next thing you want to make sure that you implement is collected compliments. Someone gave you a compliment, but it was in the form of saying, oh my gosh, your work is so great, it's so amazing, and they tried to pitch you. Believe it or not, people actually don't really respond to that. And I'm sure you had the same kind of response, where you didn't really care for the fact that they said, oh my gosh, I love your work, your ideas are so awesome. And this is the importance behind collected compliments. So let's say that you're sending a hyper-personalized message on LinkedIn, and if you remember, line 3 as always seems like you've worked on some pretty cool projects, because you don't want to send a hyper-personalized or automated message saying, hey name, saw your profile or saw that you worked at blank. I really love the concept. Your work on XYZ project was amazing. What are you currently doing for your health and fitness? Now, when you send a message like that, the prospect is not going to view you as the authority, because now you're saying, oh my gosh, I really love your work. Your ideas are so awesome. You do not want to sound desperate. And sounding desperate does not put you in the same category as an authority on LinkedIn. You want to make sure that you provide calm and collected compliments, as if you actually don't care. It's kind of just saying, oh, good work, right? And don't get me wrong, people love external validation. We all love it. But I think you can agree with me when I say that when we see an authority compliment us and they're not desperate about something, that just wants to make us engage with that compliment even more. Because let's say someone like Alex Hormozi, if you're a fitness coach, you probably know him. Let's say he saw your profile and he commented on one of your posts or like your insights, your projects or whatever. He's not going to say, oh my gosh, name, your work is so amazing, it's brilliant, right? Because that's not going to convey him as an authority. He's going to say, good stuff, good work. I like that. So you want to make sure that you implement the same type of collected compliments in your messaging, simply because everyone is going to perceive you as an authority. You're not going to seem desperate. You're going to seem like you're above it. Now, while that framework and concept might seem like it's just stroking your ego, it's actually not, because what it's doing is it's making sure that when the prospect reads that message and they see your profile and they've gone through the profile funnel and everything that you've set up so far, right? They're not going to be like, he's just someone that's desperate and trying to pitch me. They're going to say, oh, cool, this guy actually responded to my work, and they place more respect onto your compliment, because you don't want to be like the rest of the 99%. You want to be the 1% that stands out, and this is the way that you do it. You do it through collected compliments where you don't seem desperate, and it places you as an authority, and it puts more respect onto your compliment, just like the Hormozi complimenting you framework. Okay, so the next thing when it comes to mastering conversing like a pro is pain point analysis. We've covered multi-thread questioning, we've covered psychological spacing, we've covered collected compliments. Now it's pain point analysis. Now, I think it's pretty self-explanatory in terms of pain point analysis. We have to analyze a certain amount of pain points in every single conversation so we can insert our service and book them into an appointment. But how does this actually work? And how do you find pain points? How do we analyze messages so that we find concealed pain points? Even in the most discreet messages messages that don't seem like they contain pain points, we can still find them and bring them up to the prospect so that we make it about them, not us, so that we can stop pitching and start serving, right? So let's say you were to ask a multi-thread question where we say, how long have you been going to the gym for? Has it been easy to balance both fitness and nutrition and your work schedule? Now, you're going to get two types of messages to this. You're going to get one message that blatantly just gives out the pain points to you. You don't even have to analyze. It's very visible that the person is struggling with certain things based on the message that they send to you. And the other message that you're going to get is a concealed message where you have to analyze it for certain pain points to bring that up to the prospect, because they might not even know that they have a certain pain point in place that's slowing them down in terms of their progress, and it's hindering them from reaching their goals. Now, since you're a fitness coach, I'm actually going to make this a little bit more engaging and more fun for you. Now, what we're going to do is I've written a message here, and as a fitness coach, I want you to take a second and actually understand the message that I've written out. And I'm going to say it so that you can perceive it and hear it, right? I want you to analyze what pain points this prospect might be having in terms of their fitness and nutrition based on the message that I've written, okay? So take 30 seconds after I read this out. I'm going to read it out right now. I go to the gym 2 times a week. I eat 1,400 calories, and I'm bulking. I want you to stop this video right now. I've read out the message to you. Take a second to think about what pain points could be in this message if it's a banker who's trying to bulk and he goes to the gym 2 times a week and he eats 1,400 calories. Okay, so now that we're back, here are the pain points that you probably should have thought about and noticed within this message. The pain point is, I eat 1,400 calories and I'm bulking. Because even myself, I'm not a fitness coach, but I know that if you're bulking, you're not going to be eating 1,400 calories every single day. You know this, I know this, everyone knows this. So this is what the prospect doesn't know. And even though they send a message and it may seem like it's kind of concealed and they don't seem to be admitting any pain points, they actually seem to be confident in their answer. This is where you can say, oh, okay, well, how has the weight gain been then if you're eating 1,400 calories a day and you're bulking? This is going to actually dig deeper into the pain point, and this is where they're most likely going to admit saying, oh, you know what, like I haven't been gaining as much muscle as I've been wanting to. It's been like super slow progress. And this is where you actually drop your knowledge, drop your authority, and showcase your expertise, and actually show them that they have a pain point that they don't even know about. And this is where you can position your service as the solution to go for. Now, the last thing that I'm going to bring up here, and I don't really need the board for this, but when it comes to conversing like a master, timing is super important. Now, as self-explanatory as that may be, a lot of people actually get this wrong. You do not insert your service or the analysis of pain points, or you don't bring up pain points straight away in the beginning of a conversation. You only do that after the prospect or the lead has told you and given you some sort of information to work off of in the DMs. So you're not going to pitch your service if they haven't brought up a problem, unless you're obviously doing a direct offer campaign, which is a little bit different, and we'll go into that in just a second. But you're not going to be doing that when you're nurturing a prospect in the DMs and you want to book them into an appointment. That's just not how it works. You want to make sure, in fact, that prospects give you multiple messages like this in the DMs before you actually book them in. Because like we said, on average, in order to book an appointment in the DMs, you want to make sure that you've uncovered at least 1 to 3 pain points for the prospect and actually made them understand and realize that they have a problem that they may not have even known about prior to speaking with you. And that positions you as an authority because you help them understand that they have a certain pain point, they have a certain problem to getting to their goals as a result of your conversation in the DMs. Now, the way that I actually conceptualize timing in the DMs to make sure that you can book appointments is through this. Imagine you have a fisherman and he's, obviously fishing, and he puts bait on the hook of his fishing rod, right? You're the fish. They have to give you the bait first in order for you to actually go in for it. So whether it's a pain point, whether it's a positive reply, whatever it is, you want to make sure that they give you the bait first and then you go for the bait. Because if they do not give you a pain point, if they do not give you a positive reply indicating at least some level of interest in your service and booking an appointment with you, then you do not want to pitch that yet. It's not the right time to pitch your services yet. Nurture them, find more pain points, and then book them into an appointment. I'll see you guys in the next one.